I bought the bus 3 weeks before everything went to hell. Not because I saw this coming. Nobody did, not really. But because I'd always wanted to convert one of those old touring coaches into a rolling home. The kind of project you sink money into when you're 42, divorced, and realize that the house in the suburbs means absolutely nothing when your ex-wife got it in the settlement anyway. So there I was, the proud owner of a 1987 MCI 102A3, 40 feet of faded blue paint and possibility, parked in a storage lot off Highway 29. It had belonged to some Christian rock band in the 90s. The previous owner, a guy named Tormund, who smelled like motor oil and spoke with an accent I couldn't place, told me they'd driven it all over the Southwest before the lead singer found Jesus a little too hard and the whole thing fell apart. When I climbed inside that first time, I could still see where they'd torn out the old seats, still smell decades of cigarette smoke embedded in the ceiling panels, still find guitar picks wedged in the rubber seals around the windows. The engine was solid. That's what mattered. Tormund had replaced the Detroit diesel 8V71 2 years prior, and when he turned it over for me, the whole frame shuddered with this deep, rattling growl that I felt in my chest. 400 horsepower, 12,000 pounds empty, built like a tank back when they actually built things to last. I had plans, real plans. Stripped the interior, put in a bed, a small kitchen, solar panels on the roof. Take it out west, maybe. See the desert. Stop working 60-hour weeks at the logistics company and actually live a little. Classic midlife crisis stuff. Except I was going to do it right. Then the news started showing footage from Pittsburgh. At first, they called it a riot, then a terrorist attack, then some kind of mass psychosis event. The videos looked fake, people tearing into each other on the streets, moving wrong, too fast and too aggressive. I watched it on my phone during lunch break, sitting in my sedan in the parking lot, eating a sandwich and thinking about what kind of wood I wanted for the bus countertops. That was a Tuesday. By Friday, Pittsburgh wasn't an isolated incident anymore. Cleveland had it. Columbus. Videos coming out of Cincinnati showed the highways completely jammed, thousands of cars abandoned on I-71, people running through the lanes. The news anchors stopped trying to explain it rationally. They just showed the footage, and you could see in their faces that they were thinking about running too. Saturday morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with emergency alerts. The first one said to stay indoors. The second one said, avoid contact with anyone showing aggressive behavior. The third one didn't say anything helpful at all, just told us that local authorities were monitoring the situation. I lived in a townhouse complex in the north part of the city, the kind of place where everyone pretends to be neighborly, but nobody actually knows anyone's name. I looked out my window that morning and saw Paulette from Unit 12 loading suitcases into her Subaru, moving fast, her hands shaking so badly she dropped one and didn't even stop to pick it up. Just left it there on the pavement and got in her car and drove off. That's when I knew. I threw clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed my laptop, my external hard drive with 8 years of photos I'd never look at, the pistol I'd bought after the break-in 2 years ago and fired maybe 3 times at a range. I took everything from my pantry, canned soup, boxes of pasta, the weird protein bars I'd bought and never eaten. I filled every container I had with water. I worked fast, my brain running on pure adrenaline and terror. And the whole time, I could hear sounds coming from outside. Shouting, a car alarm, something that might have been screaming. I loaded everything into my sedan and drove to the storage lot. The roads were already getting bad. Not jammed yet, but you could feel it building. Everyone had the same idea at the same time. Get out. Go somewhere else. Anywhere else. I saw a fender bender at the intersection near the old Walgreens, and nobody stopped. Both drivers just got out, looked at each other, got back in their cars, and kept going. The storage lot was in an industrial area, mostly warehouses and distribution centers, the kind of place that's dead on weekends. The gate was open, just hanging there like someone had driven through and not bothered closing it behind them. I pulled in, drove down to Unit 47, and there it was. My bus. 40 feet of potential salvation just sitting there, waiting. I'd already started some of the conversion work. The seats were gone. I'd built a basic frame for a bed in the back, installed some shelving units I'd bought from IKEA, put in a small propane stove I'd found at a camping supply store. It wasn't finished. Wasn't even close. But it had walls and a door that locked and an engine that ran. I spent the rest of Saturday moving everything from my car into the bus. Then I went back for more. I hit 3 different stores before people really started losing it. A hardware store where I bought every sheet of plywood they had in stock, a sporting goods place where I cleaned out their camping section, and a grocery store that was already half empty, people shoving each other in the aisles, a woman crying near the bread section because there wasn't any left. I took what I could carry, paid with my credit card like civilization still meant something. The checkout girl didn't even look at me, just scanned items and bagged them with this blank expression, like her brain had already left and her body was just going through the motions. By the time I got back to the bus, it was getting dark. I could hear sirens in the distance, a lot of them. And underneath that, something else. This sound like, I don't know how to describe it, like a lot of people yelling at once, but wrong, disorganized. Animal. I locked myself inside the bus and didn't sleep that night. Sunday morning, I started working. The beauty of an old touring coach is that it's already designed to be lived in. The bones were there. I just needed to make it defensible. I took the plywood sheets and started covering the windows from the inside. Not all of them. I needed to see out, but most. The big windows along the sides got double layers, screwed directly into the metal frame. I left the windshield and the driver's side window clear. Plus a few small observation points along the sides where I could remove panels if I needed to check our surroundings. The door was the weak point. The original bus door was pneumatic, opened with a lever near the driver's seat. Great for picking up passengers, terrible for keeping out the infected. I spent 4 hours reinforcing it. Metal brackets, a bar that slid across from the inside. I even built a secondary frame behind it, another barrier, because one locked door didn't feel like enough anymore. I worked through Sunday and into Sunday night. My hands were bleeding from handling the plywood and metal brackets. I'd smashed my thumb with a hammer twice. I was running on gas station coffee and pure fear. The sounds outside were getting worse, closer. Around 2 a.m, I heard them for the first time. I just finished installing a bracket over one of the side windows when I heard footsteps outside the storage unit. Slow, dragging. Then a sound like someone sniffing, like they were trying to smell me through the metal walls. I froze, held my breath. The bus lights were off. I was just standing there in the darkness with a drill in my hand, listening to something walking around outside. They stayed there for maybe 10 minutes. I heard them bump into something, heard a low sound, almost like a groan, but wet. Then the footsteps moved away. I didn't start breathing normally again for an hour. Monday, I focused on supplies. I'd been smart over the weekend, but not smart enough. I needed water storage. Real storage. I found 5 of those big orange coolers, the kind construction crews use, in one of the other storage units. The lock was already broken. I didn't think about what that meant. Just took them, filled them with every drop of water I could find, and secured them in the back of the bus. Food was going to be a problem. I had maybe 2 weeks' worth if I rationed, 3 if I really stretched it. But going out for more was becoming impossible. I could hear them out there during the day now. Not just at night. They were spreading, multiplying. I spent Monday afternoon working on the roof. The old Christian rock band had mounted some speakers up there, big professional ones that were long since useless. I tore them off. In their place, I installed the solar panels I'd bought weeks ago for a completely different reason. 6 panels, 300 watts total. Not enough to run everything, but enough for lights. Charging my laptop and phone, even though the cell towers were probably dead. Running the small refrigerator I'd managed to install. While I was up there, I saw smoke in the distance. Big columns of it, black and oily, rising from what looked like downtown. And I saw them, the infected. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, moving through the streets between the warehouses. They moved in groups, like packs, but without coordination, just drawn to the same sounds, the same movement. One of them looked up while I was watching, just stopped in the middle of the street and tilted its head back and stared right at me. Its face was pale. Wrong. Even from 300 feet away, I could see that something was fundamentally broken about the way it held itself. I climbed down from the roof and didn't go back up. Tuesday, I made a decision. I couldn't stay in the storage lot forever. Eventually, they'd find me. Eventually, I'd run out of food. The bus was mobile. That was its advantage. I needed to use that. But I also needed to finish fortifying it. Needed to make it more than just a bus. Needed to make it a weapon. I spent Tuesday building what I started calling the Ram. The front of the bus had a chrome bumper, decorative, useless. I tore it off. In its place, I welded. And let me tell you, learning to weld from YouTube videos while the world ends is not ideal. A frame made from steel pipes I'd found in the storage units. Heavy pipes, the industrial kind. I created an angled guard that extended out from the front of the bus about 3 feet, sloped like a snowplow. The theory was simple. Anything in front of the bus would get hit by the ram first. Pushed aside or crushed before it could damage the engine or the radiator. The infected weren't smart enough to avoid it. They'd just walk right into it. I hoped I wouldn't have to test that theory. Wednesday, the power went out. I was inside the bus, organizing my medical supplies. Bandages, antibiotics I'd grabbed from a pharmacy on Sunday, pain medication, a suture kit I had no idea how to use. When everything just stopped. The overhead lights in the storage facility shut off. The distant hum of electricity that you never notice until it's gone just vanished. The silence was worse than the sounds. I sat there in the darkness of the bus, my heart pounding, listening. Without the ambient noise of civilization, I could hear them so much more clearly. They were everywhere, moaning, shuffling. Occasionally, one would let out this shriek, this high-pitched sound that didn't belong in a human throat, and others would answer it. My solar panels kicked in. The interior lights of the bus came on, dim but steady. I had power. I had light. I had 4 walls and a door that locked. I had a chance. Thursday, I prepared to leave. I topped off the fuel tank using gas I'd siphoned from every vehicle in the storage lot. The bus had 2 tanks, 150 gallons total, and I got them both filled to the brim. At roughly 6 miles per gallon, these old coaches aren't efficient. That gave me about 900 miles. Maybe more if I drove carefully. Maybe less if I hit traffic or had to maneuver around obstacles. I plotted a route. North, I decided, away from the cities. There were small towns up in the hills, rural areas where population density was low, where maybe, just maybe, there were fewer infected. Where I could find supplies, find other survivors, find something that resembled safety. I loaded the last of my supplies, secured everything that could move. I'd created storage areas throughout the bus. Overhead bins, underbed compartments, the entire section near the middle where I'd built shelving specifically for food and water. I strapped down the propane tanks, double-checked the solar panel connections, made sure the ram was welded solidly. I sat in the driver's seat and looked at the keys in my hand. This was it. Once I started the engine, once I opened that storage unit door, there was no going back. I'd be committed. Mobile but vulnerable. Powerful but alone. I put the key in the ignition. The Detroit diesel turned over on the first try, that beautiful rumbling growl filling the air. I could feel it through the steering wheel, through the floor, through my entire body. 400 horses waking up. 12,000 pounds of steel and determination ready to move. I hit the button for the storage unit door. It rolled up slowly, painfully slowly, revealing the access road beyond. And there they were, dozens of them, drawn by the sound of the engine, turning toward me with those pale faces and broken movements. Some of them started running, actually running, faster than they should have been able to move, their legs pumping in this awful jerky rhythm. I put the bus in gear, released the air brake, felt the whole vehicle lurch forward. The first infected hit the ram doing maybe 15 miles per hour. I heard the impact, felt it through the frame, but the ram did its job. The body went under or to the side. I couldn't tell which. Didn't matter. The bus kept moving, more of them, coming from both sides, slamming into the sides of the bus, their hands scraping against the plywood-covered windows, their faces pressing against the glass I'd left exposed near the driver's seat. I could see their eyes. Empty, hungry, wrong. I pushed the accelerator down. The diesel roared. The bus picked up speed, 20 miles per hour, 25. The infected couldn't keep up. They fell away behind me, and I was out of the storage lot, onto the access road, heading for the highway. The streets were a nightmare, abandoned cars everywhere. Some crashed into poles or buildings, doors hanging open, windows smashed, bodies in the street. I tried not to look at them, tried not to think about whether they were infected or just dead. Groups of infected wandering between the vehicles. And when they heard the bus engine, they turned. Started moving toward me. I aimed for the gaps between cars. The bus was wide, barely fit in a single lane, and every scrape against an abandoned vehicle made me wince. But the old MCI was built tough, meant to handle rough roads and long distances. The occasional sideswipe against a sedan barely slowed it down. I had to use the ram 3 times in the first mile. Once on a cluster of infected that had completely blocked the road, just standing there in a group like they were waiting for a bus that would never come. The ram hit them, and they scattered like bowling pins. The second time on an abandoned truck that was sideways across both lanes. The ram pushed it aside just enough for me to squeeze through, metal screaming against metal. The third time on an infected that ran directly at the front of the bus, and I felt that impact more than the others. Felt the weight of it. Felt what I was doing. But I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. By the time I reached the highway on-ramp, I was doing 40 miles per hour and my hands were locked on the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles had gone white. The highway was worse than I'd imagined. I'd seen the footage on the news, the packed roads, the abandoned vehicles. But seeing it in person, trying to navigate through it was different. This was I-71 North. Normally 6 lanes of steady traffic, now a graveyard of vehicles stretching as far as I could see. Most of the cars had been abandoned. People had just stopped, gotten out, and run, or tried to run. I saw luggage scattered across the lanes, children's toys. One car still had its hazard lights blinking, the battery somehow still alive, flashing orange in the gray afternoon light. And the infected. God, there were so many of them. They wandered between the cars like they were looking for something they'd lost. Some of them were fresh, relatively speaking. Still looked mostly human if you didn't look at their eyes or the way they moved. Others were further gone. Torn clothes, visible wounds. One of them was missing an arm and didn't seem to notice. I kept the bus in the rightmost lane, the shoulder really, where there was slightly more room to maneuver. The old MCI wasn't fast. Top speed maybe 65 miles per hour on a good day with a tailwind. But it was powerful. When I had to push a car out of the way, the bus did it. Slowly, loudly, but it did it. The infected started following me. Not just the ones on the highway, but more. They came out from between the cars, emerged from the tree line on both sides, drawn by the sound of the diesel engine. It was like I was leading a parade of the damned, and the parade was getting longer every mile. I drove for 3 hours straight. 3 hours of constant vigilance, constant maneuvering, constantly checking my mirrors to see how many of them were behind me. The fuel gauge dropped steadily. My arms ached from wrestling with the steering wheel. My eyes burned from staring at the road. Around what I guessed was 5 in the evening, I'd stopped checking my phone. The cell towers were definitely dead. I saw a rest stop ahead. One of those big ones with multiple buildings, fuel pumps, a restaurant. The parking lot was full of abandoned vehicles, but the infected presence looked lighter than on the highway. I needed to stop, needed to check the bus, make sure nothing crucial had been damaged in the past few hours. Needed to rest for just a few minutes before I lost it completely. I eased the bus off the highway and into the rest stop, aiming for the far corner of the parking lot where there was space between the cars. Pulled in next to a concrete barrier that would protect one side. Put the bus in park, set the air brake. The silence after I turned off the engine was deafening. I sat there for a moment, just breathing, listening to the diesel engine tick as it cooled. Through the windshield, I could see the rest stop building. The windows were dark. The glass doors at the entrance hung open. A sign advertising coffee for 99 cents swung slowly in the wind. I needed to check outside, needed to see if the Ram was still intact, if the tires were okay, if anything had gotten damaged that I couldn't see from inside. But opening that door meant exposing myself, meant going out there with them. I grabbed my pistol, checked the magazine. 15 rounds. I had 2 more magazines in my pocket. 45 rounds total. It felt completely inadequate. I grabbed a tire iron from the storage compartment near the door. Heavy, solid. If it came down to close quarters, I'd rather have something I could swing than something I could shoot. I unlocked the door, pulled the bar away, released the pneumatic mechanism. The door hissed open. The smell hit me immediately. I'd been sealed inside the bus for hours, breathing recycled air. Out here, the world smelled like death, like rot and smoke and something chemical I couldn't identify. I stepped down onto the pavement, my legs unsteady after sitting for so long, and looked around. The parking lot was quiet. Too quiet. The infected I'd seen were still there, wandering between the cars, but they hadn't noticed me yet. They were maybe 200 feet away. I had time. I moved quickly around the bus, checking everything. The ram had held up perfectly. Some dents, some blood, and other things I didn't want to think about. But the structural integrity was solid. The tires looked good. No leaks under the engine. The solar panels on the roof were intact. The plywood over the windows had a few cracks, but nothing serious. I was about to climb back inside when I heard it. A sound from the rest stop building. Not the moaning of the infected. Something else. A crash. Like someone had knocked something over inside. I froze. Looked at the building. The open doors were dark, and I couldn't see anything inside. Could be infected. Probably was infected. But could be someone alive. Someone who needed help. I stood there in the parking lot, tire iron in one hand and pistol in the other, trying to decide if I was the kind of person who investigated or the kind who ran. The old me, the guy who'd spent 15 years in logistics, making sure things got from point A to point B on time, would have run, would have gotten back on the bus and kept driving. But something had changed in the past week. Maybe it was building the ram. Maybe it was driving through a crowd of infected without stopping. Maybe it was just that the world had ended and none of the old rules mattered anymore. I walked toward the rest stop building. The glass doors led into a lobby area. Bathrooms to the left, a convenience store to the right, and straight ahead, a fast food area with registers and a menu board still lit up somehow, showing burger combos nobody would ever order again. The floor was covered in debris, broken glass, spilled food, dark stains I didn't look at too closely. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded too loud in the empty space. Another crash, from the convenience store section. Definitely not the wind. I moved toward it, my footsteps crunching on broken glass. The pistol was up now, aimed at nothing, aimed at everything. My finger rested along the side of the trigger guard. Safety was off. I was ready. The convenience store had been thoroughly looted. The shelves were empty or knocked over. The register had been pried open, cash scattered across the floor like it didn't mean anything anymore. Which it didn't. The coolers along the back wall had been smashed open, bottles and cans everywhere. Movement behind the counter. I pointed the pistol at it. "Come out, slowly." What emerged wasn't an infected, wasn't an adult. It was a kid, maybe 13, 14 years old. Thin, dirty, wearing a hoodie that was way too big and jeans that were torn at the knees. They had dark hair that hung in their face and eyes that looked at me with this mixture of terror and defiance. "Don't shoot," the kid said. Their voice cracked halfway through. I lowered the pistol slightly. "You alone?" The kid nodded. "How long have you been here?" 3 days, maybe 4. I don't know anymore. I looked at them more closely. They were shaken. Not from fear, from hunger, or dehydration, or both. Their lips were cracked. Their hoodie hung off their frame like they'd lost weight recently. "What's your name?" "Lennox," they said. "Lennox, I realized I hadn't said my own name out loud in days. "I'm Gray, Grayson, but everyone calls me Gray. You can't stay here." "I know." Lennox looked at the floor. "I tried to leave yesterday. They're everywhere out there." "Yeah, they are." I holstered the pistol, kept the tire iron in my other hand just in case. "I've got a bus, armored it. We can get out of here." Lennox looked up at me. "Why would you help me?" Good question. I didn't have a good answer. "Because I can," I said finally. "You got any supplies? Anything you want to bring?" Lennox reached behind the counter and pulled out a backpack. It looked mostly empty. "This is it." "All right. Stay close to me. We move fast. Don't make noise. The infected, They respond to sound more than anything else. You understand? Lennox nodded. We left through the front doors. The parking lot was still quiet, but I could see more infected in the distance now. They were converging, slowly, always moving toward anything that seemed alive or active. We had maybe 5 minutes before they got close enough to be a problem. Lennox saw the bus and stopped walking. That's yours? Yeah. It's huge. It's home now. Come on. We reached the bus. I got Lennox inside first, then climbed in myself and locked the door behind us. The kid stood in the aisle, looking around at the interior I'd built. The bed in the back, the shelving units packed with supplies, the small kitchen area with the propane stove, the plywood-covered windows. You did all this yourself? Lennox asked. Most of it. Some of it I did badly and had to redo. I moved to the driver's seat, started checking the instruments. Find a spot. Strap in. We're moving. Lennox sat down on the bed, pulled the seatbelt I'd installed around their thin frame. Where are we going? North, away from the cities. Somewhere with fewer people. I turned the key. The diesel rumbled to life. Somewhere safer. Is anywhere safe now? I looked at this kid in my rearview mirror. 13, maybe 14. Should have been in school. Should have been worried about homework and friends and whatever kids that age worry about. Instead, they were sitting in a converted bus driven by a stranger while the world fell apart outside. I don't know, I said honestly. But we're going to find out. I released the air brake, put the bus in gear, pulled out of the parking lot and back onto the highway, leaving the rest stop and its dark buildings behind. The infected that had been converging on us reached the parking lot just as we pulled away. I saw them in the side mirror, dozens of pale figures emerging from between the cars, moving toward where we'd been. Too slow, too late. Lennox didn't say anything for the next hour. Just sat there on the bed, hugging their backpack, staring out one of the small windows I'd left uncovered. I focused on driving. The highway was getting worse the further north we went. More cars, more obstacles, more infected. Around dusk, Lennox finally spoke. My parents are dead. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm sorry. They got sick 3 days ago. Dad first, then Mom. They started acting weird, aggressive. Mom tried to lock Dad in the bedroom, but he broke the door down. I hid in the closet. I heard... Lennox stopped, swallowed hard. I heard what happened. Then everything got quiet. I waited until morning. They were both gone. Just gone. I ran, got to the rest stop and hid there. You did good, I said, because what else could I say? You survived. That's what matters now. What about you? You have family? Ex-wife. She got the house in Lakewood. Haven't talked to her in 2 years. I navigated around an overturned semi, the bus barely squeezing through the gap. No kids, no siblings. My parents died a while back. It's just me. Just us now, Lennox said quietly. Yeah, just us. We drove until it was fully dark. The highway lights were all dead, of course, so I was running on the bus headlights alone. High beams cutting through the darkness, illuminating abandoned cars and infected, and occasionally things I didn't want to look at too closely. I needed to stop, needed to rest. The adrenaline from earlier had worn off, and I was running on fumes. My eyes kept trying to close. My reactions were getting slower. If I didn't stop soon, I'd make a mistake, and mistakes out here were fatal. I saw a bridge overpass ahead. The road beneath it was blocked by a massive pileup, at least a dozen cars. But on top of the bridge, on the overpass itself, there was space. If I could get up there, we'd be elevated. Harder for the infected to reach. more defensible. I found an access road that spiraled up to the overpass. The bus climbed slowly, the diesel straining, but we made it. I drove to the middle of the bridge, positioned the bus sideways across both lanes, blocking the road in both directions. It wasn't perfect, but it created a barrier. If anything wanted to reach us during the night, they'd have to go through the bus. I set the air brake, turned off the engine. The sudden silence was like a physical weight. "We're stopping here?" Lennox asked. "For a few hours, I need to rest. You should too." I stood up from the driver's seat, my back screaming in protest. "You hungry?" Lennox nodded. I went to the food storage area. I'd organized everything by type and expected shelf life. Canned goods that would last years, dried pasta and rice, protein bars. I grabbed 2 cans of soup, opened them, heated them on the propane stove. Nothing fancy, just chicken noodle soup from a can. But it was hot and it was food, and that was enough. We ate sitting on the bed in the back. Lennox devoured their soup like they hadn't eaten in days. They probably hadn't. I ate more slowly, my stomach not quite ready to accept food after the stress of the day. "Thank you," Lennox said when they finished, "for picking me up. You didn't have to." "Yeah, well, couldn't leave you there." I collected the empty cans, set them aside to deal with later. "Get some sleep. I'll take first watch." "Watch?" "Someone needs to stay awake. Listen for them. Make sure they don't get too close." I moved back to the driver's seat. "I'll wake you in a few hours. We'll trade off." Lennox lay down on the bed, pulled a blanket over themselves that I'd scavenged from the storage unit. Within minutes, they were asleep. The kind of deep, exhausted sleep that only comes when your body finally feels safe enough to shut down. I sat in the driver's seat and stared out at the darkness. The bridge was maybe 40 feet above the ground, high enough that I could see the landscape around us, or what passed for landscape. Abandoned cars stretching in both directions, fires burning in the distance, uncontrolled, lighting up patches of the sky, and the infected. Even in the darkness, I could see them moving, wandering, searching. Some of them noticed the bus. They gathered beneath the bridge, staring up at us. They couldn't climb. At least, I'd never seen one climb. But they stayed there anyway, dozens of them swaying slightly, their mouths opening and closing like they were trying to speak, but had forgotten how. I watched them for hours, watched more arrive, watched them press against each other, packed tight, all of them focused on the bus, on us, on the last 2 living people in their world. Around 2 in the morning, I heard Lennox scream. I spun around, hand going to my pistol, and saw the kid sitting up in bed, eyes wide, breathing hard. Nightmare, just a nightmare. "Hey," I said softly. "You're okay. You're safe." Lennox looked around, taking in the bus interior, remembering where they were. "Sorry, I saw them again. My parents, the way they looked when they changed." I moved to the back, sat down on the edge of the bed. That's not going to go away. Those images, those memories, they stick. I'd seen enough already myself. More than enough. But you're here now. You survived. Focus on that. "How do you deal with it?" Lennox asked. "The fear, the constant fear." "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring that out." I looked at this kid who'd lost everything in 3 days. But I think you keep moving, keep surviving, because the alternative is giving up, and I'm not ready to do that. Are you? Lennox shook their head. "Good. Now get some more sleep. We've got a long drive tomorrow." But Lennox didn't lie back down. Instead, they looked at me with these serious eyes and asked, "Do you think anyone else made it?" Like, are there other people out there who survived? I have to believe there are. Has to be someone, right? People in rural areas, military bases, places that were isolated or well defended. We can't be the only ones. But what if we are? Then we'll deal with that when we know for sure. Until then, we operate on hope. I stood up, moved back toward the driver's seat. Now sleep, I mean it. This time Lennox did lie down. I heard them shifting around, getting comfortable, and eventually their breathing evened out again. I stayed in the driver's seat and kept watch. The infected beneath the bridge didn't leave. If anything, more arrived. By the time dawn started breaking, there had to be over 100 of them down there. A silent crowd of the damned, all staring up at us. I started the engine just as the sun rose. The infected reacted to the sound, their moaning intensifying, their movements becoming more agitated. But they couldn't reach us. I put the bus in gear, drove off the bridge via the far access road, and left them behind. Lennox woke up as we got back on the highway. Sat up, rubbed their eyes, looked out the window at the endless stretch of abandoned vehicles. "Morning," they said. "Morning. There's breakfast bars in the storage area. Grab 2 and water. Stay hydrated." We fell into a routine over the next few days. I drove. Lennox navigated, watching the road ahead, calling out obstacles. We rationed food carefully. 3 small meals a day. Enough to keep us going, but not so much that we'd run out too quickly. Water was more precious. I'd filled the orange coolers, but they wouldn't last forever. We needed to find more. Needed to find a lot of things. The bus held up remarkably well. The Ram took constant abuse as I pushed through blockages on the highway, but it stayed solid. The engine never overheated. The tires never blew. The old MCI just kept going, mile after mile, like it was built for exactly this purpose. We saw other survivors once. It was the 3rd day after picking up Lennox. We were passing through what used to be a small town. I didn't catch the name. The signs were all either knocked over or covered in blood. When I saw movement on top of a strip mall, 3 people on the roof. They were waving at us, frantically. One of them had a white shirt tied to a pole, waving it back and forth. I slowed the bus. Lennox looked at me. "Are we stopping?" I looked at the people on the roof, looked at the infected surrounding the building, at least 50 of them, maybe more, all packed around the entrances and sides. The people were trapped, had probably been trapped for days, and I thought about stopping. Thought about trying to save them. Thought about what it would take. Ram through the infected, get close enough to the building, figure out how to get them down from the roof and into the bus without getting overrun. Then I looked at my fuel gauge. Just under half. Looked at my food supplies, down to maybe 8 days. Looked at Lennox, 13 years old and barely holding it together. I couldn't save everyone. I could barely save us. I pressed the accelerator. The bus moved forward. In the side mirror, I saw the people on the roof stop waving. Saw them watch us drive away. Saw one of them collapse to their knees. "You're just leaving them?" Lennox asked. Their voice was accusing. "Yes, but they'll die. They might die anyway. We stop, we might die too. I have to make choices now. Hard choices. And I'm choosing us." I kept my eyes on the road. Couldn't look at Lennox. Couldn't see the judgment there. "You can hate me for it if you want." Lennox was quiet for a long time. Then, "I don't hate you. I wish things were different." "Yeah, me too." We drove in silence after that. I felt the weight of what I'd done, of who I'd left behind. But I didn't turn around. Couldn't. The rules of the old world didn't apply anymore. Morality had become a luxury I couldn't afford. That night, we stopped in what looked like farmland. Open fields on both sides of the highway, a few scattered houses in the distance. The infected presence was much lighter here. Fewer people meant fewer infected. I pulled the bus off onto a dirt access road, drove far enough from the highway that we couldn't be seen easily, and parked behind an old barn that provided some cover. While Lennox prepared dinner, more canned soup, some crackers I'd found in the back of a storage unit, I went outside to check the bus. The ram was holding up, but it was getting bent out of shape. Some of the welds were showing stress fractures. I'd need to reinforce it eventually, or it would fail when I needed it most. I was examining one of the welds when I heard Lennox call from inside the bus. "Gray, you need to see this." I climbed back inside. Lennox was sitting at the small desk area I'd built, my laptop open in front of them. The solar panels had kept it charged. "What is it?" I was checking for Wi-Fi signals. I know the cell towers are down, but I thought maybe. And I found one. A weak one, but it's there. Someone nearby has power and internet. I looked at the screen. Sure enough, there was a Wi-Fi network showing one bar. The network name was Rescue Station 47. "Could be a trap," I said. "Could be people who can help," Lennox countered. "Real people, not just us." I thought about it. Thought about the risks. Thought about the fuel gauge and the dwindling supplies and the fact that I couldn't drive north forever. Eventually, we'd run out of everything. Eventually, we'd need other people. All right. In the morning, we'll investigate. But carefully. If anything feels wrong, we leave immediately. Understood? Lennox nodded eagerly. That night, I barely slept. Kept thinking about the Wi-Fi signal, about what it might mean, about whether I was about to make a terrible mistake. Dawn came. I started the engine. We followed the Wi-Fi signal strength, which led us off the highway and onto smaller roads. Country roads with names like Miller's Creek Road and Township 47. The infected presence was minimal. We saw maybe a dozen in total, scattered across the fields, moving slowly through what used to be someone's farm. The Wi-Fi signal grew stronger. We followed it for about 5 miles until we saw the source. It was a farm, a big one. The main house was a 2-story farmhouse painted white, or it had been white before everything went to hell. Now it was fortified. Windows boarded up. A fence had been erected around the entire property, made from wooden posts and barbed wire. Guard towers on 2 corners, makeshift but functional. And there were people. I could see them moving around inside the compound. 3, maybe 4 individuals. They'd seen us too. One of them was pointing at the bus. I stopped maybe 200 feet from the main gate. Close enough to see, far enough to run if needed. A man emerged from the farmhouse. He was tall, maybe 50 years old, with gray hair and a beard that looked like he'd stopped grooming it weeks ago. He carried a rifle, but he wasn't pointing it at us, just holding it casually, like it was an extension of his arm. He walked to the gate, stopped there, waited. I looked at Lennox. "Stay in the bus. Keep the door locked. If anything goes wrong, you get in the driver's seat and you drive. Understand?" "I don't know how to drive." "You'll figure it out. Keys in the ignition. Big pedal on the right is gas. The one on the left is brake. Push the yellow button to release the air brake." I grabbed my pistol, checked the magazine. "Stay, here." I opened the bus door and stepped outside. The man at the gate watched me approach. His face was weathered, suspicious, but not hostile. Not yet. "That's close enough," he called out when I got within 50 feet. His voice had a southern accent, not too thick. State your business. Saw your Wi-Fi signal. Thought you might be people worth meeting. I kept my hands visible. Pistol in my belt, but not drawn. We're not infected. We're not raiders. Just two people trying to survive. Two? Me and a kid. Teenager. Found them at a rest stop a few days back. The man studied me. Behind him, I could see others gathering near the farmhouse. A woman, another man. Someone smaller, another kid maybe. Where are you headed? The man asked. North? Away from the cities? Looking for somewhere safe. Ain't nowhere safe anymore. You should know that by now. Safer then. Looking for somewhere safer. The man was quiet for a moment. Then, you armed? Pistol, tire iron, that's it. The bus armored? Reinforced. Built a ram on the front. Plywood over most of the windows. Smart. The man shifted his grip on the rifle. My name's Dalton. This is my farm. Or was my farm before everything went to shit. Now it's a rescue station. We got power from solar and a generator. Got food from what we had stored for winter. Got water from the well. And we got rules. What kind of rules? Everyone contributes. Everyone pulls their weight. You don't work, you don't eat. We don't tolerate violence between survivors. And anyone shows signs of infection, they get quarantined immediately. If they turn, they get put down. No exceptions. I nodded slowly. Reasonable. You willing to follow those rules? Depends. What do you need from us? Dalton smiled slightly. That bus of yours, that's a valuable asset. Can transport people, supplies, can push through infected. We could use something like that. You willing to share it? Share it? Sure. Give it up. No, it's mine. I built it. Fair enough? Dalton lowered the rifle completely. There's 8 of us here right now. Mix of adults and kids. We're working on building this place into a real settlement. Somewhere people can live instead of just survive. You and the kid want to stay for a bit. Rest up, restock, you're welcome to. But long term, you'd need to contribute something more than just the bus. What do you need? Everything. Food, medicine, building materials, information about the area, someone who can scout, someone who can make runs into the nearby towns for supplies. Dalton looked at the bus. That thing of yours would be perfect for supply runs. I thought about it. Thought about the dwindling supplies. Thought about Lennox, who needed more than I could provide alone. Thought about the fact that I'd been driving for days with no real plan beyond go north. We'll stay for a few days. See how it goes. If it works out, we'll talk about long term. Dalton nodded. That's reasonable. Come on in. We'll get you and the kid settled. The gate opened. I walked back to the bus, climbed inside. Lennox looked at me expectantly. Well, we're going in. They seem okay. But keep your guard up. Trust nobody completely. Got it? Got it. I drove the bus through the gate and into the compound. Behind us, Dalton closed and locked the gate. The chain rattled. The sound of security. The sound of walls between us and the infected. It felt good. Felt dangerous. Felt necessary. The farm compound was bigger than it looked from outside. The main farmhouse was the hub. Behind it, several outbuildings, a barn, a workshop, what looked like a chicken coop, though there were no chickens anymore. The fence enclosed maybe 3 acres, not huge but defendable. Dalton introduced us to the others. The woman was named Petra, mid-30s, arms covered in tattoos that looked like they told stories. She was the one who maintained the solar panels and generator. The other man was Osric, younger, maybe 25, quiet with sharp eyes that seemed to assess everything. He handled security and guard duty. The smaller person was indeed a kid, a girl named Vanya who couldn't have been more than 10, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. There were others, too. An elderly man named Harland, who barely left the farmhouse. A couple, Idris and Marin, who'd arrived 3 days before us. And someone named Quillen, who was out on watch when we arrived. They all stared at the bus, at Lennox, at me. "You really armored a bus?" Petra asked, walking around it with an appraised expression. "Had to. Couldn't drive through the cities otherwise." "This is incredible work." She ran her hand along the ram. "These welds are rough but functional. You do this yourself?" "Learned from YouTube videos before the internet went down." She laughed. It was a real laugh, the first I'd heard from anyone in over a week. "You learned to weld from YouTube and built this. You got skills." Over the next few hours, we got settled in. Dalton assigned us a space in the barn, not the bus itself, which I kept locked, but a section of the barn that had been converted into sleeping quarters. Lennox seemed relieved to be around other people, other kids especially. Vanya took to them immediately, showing them the compound, chattering about the chickens they used to have and the garden they were trying to grow. I spent the time talking to Dalton about their situation. They'd been at the farm when everything went bad. Dalton's family farm, passed down through 3 generations. His wife had been visiting her sister in Columbus when the outbreak started. He hadn't heard from her since. "I got lucky," he told me as we sat on the farmhouse porch. Isolated location, already had supplies for winter. Already had defensive structures in place, fences for the livestock, gates, the whole thing. Just had to modify it. "And the others, how'd they find you?" Petra was a neighbor, lived 2 miles down the road, came here first day when she realized what was happening. Osric was passing through on the highway, saw our signal, checked it out. "The kids..." Dalton looked away. "They showed up with parents. Parents didn't make it." "I'm sorry." "World's full of sorry now." Dalton pulled out a cigarette, lit it, offered one to me. I declined. "What about you? Why'd you really build that bus?" "Midlife crisis project. Wanted to convert it into a motorhome, travel the country. Classic divorced guy move. And then the world ended. And then the world ended. Suddenly my midlife crisis vehicle became a survival machine." Dalton smoked in silence for a moment. Then, "That kid with you. Lennox, you their parent?" "No. Found them at a rest stop 3 days ago, hiding. Their parents turned. And you took them in. Couldn't leave them there. That's more than a lot of people would do. I respect that." Dalton stood up. "Come on, I'll show you the operation we got running." He gave me a tour, showed me the solar array on top of the barn. 12 panels, enough to run essentials. Showed me the generator, an industrial model that they only ran a few hours a day to conserve fuel. Showed me the well, which provided fresh water. Showed me their food storage, which was more impressive than mine. They'd had a full pantry when everything started, plus what they'd salvaged from neighboring farms. "We're set up for maybe 3 months if we ration," Dalton explained. "After that, we need to start making runs for supplies. That's where you come in. Supply runs into the towns." "Exactly. There's a small town about 15 miles from here, Millbrook. Population was around 2,000. Most of them are dead or infected now. But the stores are still there. The pharmacy, the hardware store, the grocery stores that got looted but probably still have something in the back. We need someone who can get in there, load up, get out. That's dangerous. Everything's dangerous now. But you got the vehicle for it. That bus can push through infected like they're nothing." And I'm guessing you got experience navigating hostile territory by now. I thought about the drive from the storage lot, the highway, the rest stop, the town with the people on the roof that I'd left behind. Yeah, I got experience. Then you'll help? I looked at Lennox across the compound. They were sitting with Vanya, both of them playing some kind of game with rocks. Lennox was smiling. Actually smiling. I hadn't seen that since I'd picked them up. I'll help, but not today. Bus needs maintenance first. The ram's showing stress fractures. I need to reinforce it, or it'll fail. Tires need checking. Oil needs changing. Give me 2 days to get everything in order. 2 days, then we make a run. We shook on it. That night, the compound felt almost normal. We had dinner together. Canned stew, bread that Marin had somehow managed to bake using flour from storage, water from the well. Everyone sat around a long table in the farmhouse, eating and talking. Real conversation. Not about the infected or survival or fear. Just talking. Petra told a story about her tattoos. Osric described the last concert he'd been to before everything ended. Vanya asked Lennox if they wanted to share the stuffed rabbit. It felt like civilization, like humanity, like maybe we weren't completely doomed. After dinner, I went out to check on the bus. It was parked near the barn, under some shade from a large oak tree. I walked around it in the darkness, checking everything by flashlight. The ram really did need work. Some of the welds had cracked. The brackets were loose. If I hit another major obstacle, the whole thing might fold. Impressive machine. I turned. Osric was standing there, rifle slung over his shoulder. Must have come off watch rotation. Thanks. It gets the job done. Dalton tells me you're going to help with supply runs. That's the plan. Osric studied the bus, studied me. You know it's bad out there, right? Not just infected, other survivors. Some of them aren't like us, aren't trying to rebuild. They're just taking, hurting, using the collapse as an excuse. Raiders? Among other things, we've had scouts, people watching the farm, testing our defenses. So far, they've moved on, but it's only a matter of time before someone decides we've got something worth taking by force. That's why you have guard towers and weapons. That's why. But it's also why we need to be careful about who we let in, why we need to know everyone can be trusted. Osric looked at me directly. Can you be trusted? I met his gaze. I got a kid in there who depends on me. I got a vehicle I built with my own hands. I got no reason to betray the people who are giving us shelter and food. So yeah, you can trust me, but I understand if you don't. Trust is earned, not given. Osric nodded slowly. Fair answer. All right, Gray. Welcome to Rescue Station 47. Hope you survived the experience. He walked away, heading toward one of the guard towers. I stood there in the darkness, listening to the night sounds. Crickets, wind through the trees, and underneath it, distant, the sound of the infected. They were out there, always out there. But for the first time in over a week, they felt far away. I climbed into the bus, locked the door, lay down on the bed I'd built, stared at the ceiling. Lennox was sleeping in the barn with Vanya. They'd wanted to stay with the other kid. I'd agreed, after making sure the barn was secure and that Petra would be sleeping there too. But the bus felt empty without them. I'd been alone most of my adult life. After the divorce, I'd told myself I preferred it that way. No complications, no one to answer to. Just me and my routine and my logistics job, my plans for converting a bus. Now, lying there in the empty bus, I realized how much I'd gotten used to having Lennox around. Their questions, their observations. The way they'd started calling me Gray instead of Grayson, like I was someone important. I'd started this journey alone. Started building this bus as a solo project for a solo life. But somewhere between the storage lot and the farm, it had become something else. The bus wasn't just my survival vehicle anymore. It was our survival vehicle. And I was responsible for keeping us both alive. I fell asleep thinking about supply runs and welding and whether I was strong enough for what came next. The next 2 days I spent working on the bus. Dalton had a full workshop in one of the outbuildings, tools I didn't have in the storage lot, proper welding equipment, materials I could use. I reinforced every weld on the ram, added additional bracing, replaced the brackets with stronger ones, checked every inch of the frame, changed the oil, rotated the tires, topped off all fluids. Petra helped. She turned out to be mechanically inclined, had worked as an electrician before everything collapsed. Together, we rewired the solar panel connections, making them more efficient. She helped me install additional power storage, batteries salvaged from cars in the area, wired in parallel to give us more capacity. "You really built this whole thing yourself?" she asked while we were working on the electrical system. Most of it. Had about 3 weeks before everything went to hell. Worked on it every day after work, all weekend. It was supposed to be my escape from normal life. Turns out, it actually was. Yeah, just not the way I imagined. Lennox helped too. They weren't much good with tools, but they could hand me things, hold panels in place while I drilled, keep track of parts. And they asked questions, lots of questions. How the solar panels worked, why the ram needed to be angled, what the different tools were for. I answered them all. Figured if something happened to me, Lennox should know how to maintain the bus, should know how everything worked. On the second day, while we were taking a break, Lennox asked me something I'd been dreading. "Gray, do you think my parents are still out there? Like, as infected?" I took a drink of water, thought about lying, decided against it. Probably. The infected don't seem to die on their own. They just keep going until something stops them. So, they're out there somewhere, walking around, not knowing who they were. Yeah. Do you think they're suffering? Like, is some part of them still aware? I don't know. I hope not. I hope whatever they were is just gone. And what's left is just biology. Just a body moving around without a person inside it. Lennox was quiet for a while. Then, "If I get infected, will you make sure I don't turn into that? Will you stop me before I'm completely gone?" I looked at this kid who'd already lost everything. Who'd hidden in a closet while their parents died or changed or whatever you wanted to call it. Who was asking me to promise I'd kill them if it came to that. "Yes," I said, "I promise, but it's not going to come to that." "How do you know?" "Because we're careful, because we're smart, because we've got each other's backs, and because I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Understand?" Lennox nodded. Didn't look convinced, but accepted the answer. That night, Dalton called a meeting. Everyone gathered in the farmhouse living room, all 10 of us, sitting on whatever furniture was available or standing against the walls. Dalton stood in the middle, that rifle always within reach. "Tomorrow, Gray and I are making a supply run into Millbrook," he announced. "We need medicine primarily. The pharmacy there should still have stock. We also need food if we can find it, building materials, ammunition if we're lucky. We'll take the bus since it's the most defensible vehicle we have." "Who's going?" Osric asked. "Me and Gray." 2 people is safer than more. Less noise, more room for supplies. What about security here? Petra asked. We lose both of you. We lose our leadership and our driver. Osric's in charge while I'm gone. You have the guard rotation. You have the walls. You've held this place for 3 weeks already. You can hold it for 1 more day. And if you don't come back? Dalton smiled grimly. Then you keep doing what you're doing. Survive. That's all any of us can do. The meeting ended. People dispersed. Lennox caught me before I headed out to the bus. You're really going into the town? Yeah. It's dangerous. Everything's dangerous now. You said that yourself? But you'll come back, right? I knelt down so I was eye level with them. I'm coming back. I promise. And when I do, we'll have medicine and supplies and everything will be fine. What if something happens? Then you've got people here. Petra, Osric, Vanya. You're not alone. But nothing's going to happen. Dalton knows these roads. The bus can handle anything. We'll be fine. Lennox hugged me, sudden and tight. I hugged back, surprised by how much I needed it. Be careful, they said. Always am. That night, I barely slept. Again. I lay in the bus and ran through scenarios. What we'd face in town, how many infected, what kind of obstacles, whether we'd find what we needed or come back empty-handed, whether we'd come back at all. At dawn, Dalton knocked on the bus door. He was carrying a backpack and his rifle. He'd also brought a shotgun. You know how to use this? He asked, handing me the shotgun. Point and shoot? Pretty much. 12 gauge, semi-auto, 7 shells in the tube. It's louder than hell and kicks like a mule, but at close range it'll drop anything. I took the shotgun, felt the weight of it. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. Save it for when we make it back. Dalton climbed into the bus, looked around at the interior. Hell of a setup you got here. It works. It does better than work. This is professional grade stuff. You sure you just learned this from the internet? I'm a fast learner. Had to be. I started the engine. The diesel rumbled to life. Around us, the compound was waking up. Osric was in one guard tower. Petra was checking the solar panels. Lennox and Vanya stood near the barn, watching. I waved to them. Lennox waved back. Then I drove the bus through the gate and out onto the road, toward the town, toward whatever waited for us there. Millbrook had been a typical small town. Main Street with shops, a few residential areas spreading out from the center, farms and fields surrounding everything. Population 2,000, Dalton had said, which meant maybe 2,000 infected now, if they were all still in the area. We approached slowly. The bus rumbled down the 2-lane road, passing abandoned cars and burned houses. The infected presence increased the closer we got. They were everywhere, wandering through the streets, standing in yards. Grouped around what might have been interesting smells or sounds weeks ago, but were now just memories. There, Dalton pointed. The pharmacy, 2 blocks down, right side. I saw it. A small brick building with a green cross sign. The windows were intact, which was unusual. Most places had been broken into and looted. But this one looked almost untouched. The street leading to it was packed with infected. At least 50 of them just in the immediate area. We'll ram through to the door, I said. Get as close as possible. You go in while I keep the bus running and watch for problems. You load up everything you can carry. We leave. How long do I have? 5 minutes, maybe 10 if it's quiet. Any longer and we'll be swarmed. Dalton nodded. All right, let's do this. I aimed the bus at the center of the infected crowd. Accelerated, The ram hit the first group doing about 20 miles per hour. They scattered. Bodies went under the wheels. I felt every impact through the frame. Kept going. The bus plowed through them like they were made of paper. We reached the pharmacy. I pulled the bus right up to the front door, the ram actually touching the brick wall. Created a narrow channel between the bus and the building. The only way to reach the door was along that channel, and I could defend it from inside the bus. "Go," I said. "Clock's ticking." Dalton grabbed his backpack and the rifle. Moved to the bus door. I unlocked it. He stepped out, moving fast, and disappeared into the pharmacy. I stayed in the driver's seat, shotgun across my lap, watching. The infected started converging immediately. They'd been scattered by the ram, but now they were reorganizing. Dozens of them moving toward the bus from all directions. They pressed against the sides, their hands slapping the plywood-covered windows, their faces pushing against the glass I'd left uncovered near the driver's seat. One of them tried to climb onto the hood. I started to reach for the shotgun, but it slid off on its own. Couldn't find traction on the metal slope. More of them, surrounding us completely. The bus rocked slightly from their collective weight. 5 minutes passed. Dalton wasn't back. 7 minutes. Still no Dalton. 9 minutes. The infected were 3 deep around the bus now. Their moaning filled the air. If any more showed up, we'd be completely buried. 10 minutes. I was about to get out and go find him when Dalton emerged from the pharmacy. His backpack was bulging, clearly stuffed with supplies. He had a box under one arm. He moved quickly down the channel between the bus and the building, but the infected were blocking his path. I opened the bus door, raised the shotgun, aimed at the infected closest to Dalton. The shotgun blast was deafening inside the bus. The infected went down. So did 2 behind it. I racked another shell, fired again, cleared a path. Dalton ran, made it to the bus door, climbed inside. I locked the door behind him the moment he was clear. "Drive," he gasped. I put the bus in gear, started backing up. The infected didn't move. I had to push through them in reverse, feeling every impact. One got caught under the wheels. The bus lurched. Then we were clear, back on the main road, and I turned the bus around and accelerated away from the pharmacy. We didn't stop until we were 5 miles from town. I pulled off onto a dirt road, killed the engine, and just sat there shaking. That, Dalton said, also shaking, was too damn close. "Did you get what we needed?" He opened his backpack. It was filled with medicine, antibiotics, pain medication, bandages, antiseptics. The box under his arm contained insulin. "This is more than I hoped for," he said. The pharmacy was almost fully stocked. They'd locked it up when things got bad, but never came back. It's all there. We could go back, make multiple trips, clean it out. Hell no. 1 trip was enough. Agreed. Dalton looked at me. "You saved my ass back there. That shotgun blast cleared the path. I wouldn't have made it without you. We're a team. Teams watch out for each other." We rested for 20 minutes. Let the adrenaline fade. Let our hands stop shaking. Then I started the engine again, and we drove back to the farm. The gate opened as we approached. Osric had been watching for us. The bus rolled through, and the gate closed behind us with that satisfying rattle of chain and lock. Everyone came out to see what we'd brought back. Dalton showed them the medicine, and I saw relief on every face. Real, genuine relief. Medicine meant they could treat injuries and illness. Meant they had a chance at survival beyond just hiding behind walls. Lennox ran up to me. "You made it. Told you I would." Was it scary? Terrifying, but we got what we needed. That night, there was celebration. Well, as much celebration as was possible given the circumstances. Marin made bread again. Harland opened a bottle of whiskey he'd been saving. We sat around and ate and drank, and for a few hours pretended the world outside the fence didn't exist. Dalton stood up and raised his glass. To Gray and the bus. They made this possible. Everyone drank. I felt embarrassed and proud and exhausted all at once. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat on the porch of the farmhouse with Dalton. He lit a cigarette, offered one to me again. This time I took it. "You did good today," he said. "So did you." "I mean it, though. You kept your head, made smart decisions. That could have gone so wrong in so many ways, but it didn't. You know why? Why? Because you're a survivor. You got that quality. Some people have it, most don't. You do." I smoked in silence. Thought about the past 2 weeks. Everything I'd seen. Everything I'd done. "I left people behind," I said suddenly. When I was driving north, there were survivors on a roof in some town. They were trapped. I could have tried to save them, but I drove past. And if you'd stopped, maybe they'd be alive. Maybe we'd all be alive. Or maybe we'd all be dead. Dalton smoked. Considered. "You made a choice. The choice that kept you and the kid alive. That's not wrong. That's just surviving. It feels wrong. It always will. Welcome to the new world. Every choice is impossible. Every decision might get someone killed. You do your best. You try to help when you can. But sometimes you can't. And you have to live with that." We finished our cigarettes in silence. Over the next week, life at the compound settled into a rhythm. I made 2 more supply runs with Dalton, one to a hardware store in a different town, one to what remained of a grocery distribution center. Each run was dangerous. Each run was necessary. Each run I came back with supplies that kept everyone alive a little longer. Lennox started helping Petra with the solar panels. Turned out the kid had a knack for electrical work. Petra was teaching them everything she knew: how to wire batteries, how to calculate power loads, how to troubleshoot when things went wrong. Vanya attached herself to me like a shadow. Whenever I was working on the bus, she was there, handing me tools, asking questions, telling me stories about her life before. Her parents had been doctors. Both of them turned on the same day. She'd escaped because she'd been playing in the basement and they'd forgotten about her in their hunger and rage. 10 years old and already carrying that weight. I taught her basic mechanics, how an engine worked, how to change a tire, how to check oil. She absorbed everything like a sponge. I think she needed something to focus on, something that wasn't the memories. Osric taught me to shoot properly. The pistol I bought after the break-in, I'd never really learned to use it correctly. Osric took me out to the far corner of the property where they'd set up a makeshift range and spent hours teaching me stance, breathing, trigger control. "You got decent instincts," he said after I'd put a full magazine into a target at 15 yards. "But instincts only get you so far. You need technique, muscle memory. So when the moment comes, you don't have to think, you just do." We trained every day. Pistol, shotgun, even the rifle, though Osric was reluctant to let me use his personal weapon. By the end of the week, I could consistently hit targets at various distances, could reload quickly, could clear malfunctions, could kill if I needed to. The compound was growing. A family arrived on the 8th day. A man named Zale, his wife Rhiannon, and their twin teenage sons whose names I never quite caught because they were so alike I couldn't tell them apart. They'd been hiding in a cabin 15 miles away, ran out of food, heard rumors of a rescue station. Dalton accepted them cautiously, made them quarantine in a separate building for 3 days to make sure none of them were infected. They passed. They joined us. Another solo survivor showed up on day 10, a woman named Tamsin who'd been a park ranger. She was tough, competent, and brought actual survival skills that most of us lacked. She knew how to hunt, how to trap, how to find food in the wilderness. We were becoming a community, a real settlement. 15 people now, adults and kids, different backgrounds, different skills, all working together to survive. It felt like hope. On day 12, that hope was tested. I was working on the bus, always something to maintain, always something to improve, when Osric called from the guard tower. Vehicles approaching. Everyone froze. Visitors were rare. Survivors who found us usually came on foot or in beaten-up cars barely running. Multiple vehicles meant something organized, something planned. I climbed up to the guard tower with Dalton and Osric, looked down the access road. 3 pickup trucks, coming fast. Men in the truck beds, weapons visible. Raiders, Osric said quietly. Dalton raised binoculars, studied them. About 15 people. Rifles, shotguns, some blunt weapons. They're armed for trouble. Do we let them approach? Don't think we have a choice. They've seen the compound. They know we're here. The truck stopped about 100 feet from the gate. Men jumped out. They were dressed in mismatched gear, camouflage, leather. One guy wearing what looked like football padding. Some of them had bandanas covering their faces. They all had weapons. One man walked forward from the group. He was big, not tall but wide, muscular. Bald head covered in tattoos. He carried a rifle like he knew exactly how to use it. "You in charge here?" he called out. His voice was gravelly, deep. Dalton stepped forward so he could be seen. "I am. What do you want?" "Name's Kravitz. Me and my crew are looking for supplies. Heard you got a nice setup here. Solar power, food, water. We could use some of that. We've got enough for ourselves. Barely. Can't spare anything." Kravitz smiled. It wasn't friendly. "See? That's where we disagree. Looks to me like you got plenty. 15 people here from what my scouts report. That's a lot of mouths to feed. A lot of resources being used. Now we could trade, but we don't got much to trade with except our protection." "Protection from what?" "From people like us." Kravitz's smile widened. "The world's changed, friend. Old rules don't apply. You either got the strength to hold what's yours, or someone stronger takes it. That's just reality." Beside me, Osric quietly chambered around in his rifle. Below, I saw Petra moving to a position near the fence. Tamsin was already in the other guard tower, arrow knocked in the bow she'd made from salvaged materials. Dalton remained calm. "We're not interested in your protection. We're doing fine on our own. I'm going to ask you politely to leave. And if we don't, then we'll make you leave." Kravitz laughed. So did several of his crew. "You're outnumbered, outgunned. You really want to make this a fight?" "If we have to." The tension was thick enough to cut. Both sides armed, both sides ready. One wrong word, and this would explode. Then Kravitz looked past Dalton, looked at the compound behind us. His eyes focused on something. The bus. "That your bus?" he asked. "It's mine," I called out before Dalton could answer. Kravitz's attention shifted to me. "You built that?" "Yeah. It's impressive, real impressive. That ram on the front, the armor, the whole setup, that's quality work." He paused. "I could use a vehicle like that. Would make getting around a lot easier. You interested in selling?" "No." "How about trading? We got supplies, ammunition, fuel, medicine even." "Not interested." Kravitz studied me, studied the bus. I could see the wheels turning in his head, see him calculating. That's disappointing. But I understand. A machine like that, you get attached. Put work into it. It's yours. He turned back to Dalton. All right, we'll leave. For now. But think about what I said. World's only getting more dangerous. Having friends with strength, that matters. You change your mind about protection, about trading, you let us know. How would we let you know? Oh, we'll be around. We'll be watching. Kravitz gestured to his crew. Let's go, boys. They climbed back into their trucks, started the engines, drove away. We watched them disappear down the access road. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. We just waited, making sure they were really gone. Finally, Dalton let out a breath. That was close. They'll be back, Osric said. Guys like that always come back. I know. We need to prepare. That night, we had an emergency meeting. All 15 of us crammed into the farmhouse living room. Dalton laid it out plainly. We've been scouted by raiders. They know we're here. They know what we have. They'll come back, probably with more people, and they'll try to take everything. We need to decide now what we're going to do about it. We fight, Osric said immediately. We've built this place. It's ours. We defend it. Fight how? Rhiannon asked. Her voice was shaking. They had 15 people just in those trucks. Probably more wherever they're based. We can't fight that many. We have defenses, Tamsin pointed out. Guard towers, fences. We have the high ground. We also have children, Zale said. He looked at his twins, Ivania and Lennox. If we fight and lose, what happens to them? Silence. Heavy silence. Then Petra spoke. What if we leave? Pack everything up, take the vehicles we have, and find somewhere else. Run? Osric sounded disgusted. Just give them what they want. Better than dying for it. We've put 3 weeks of work into this place. We've made it defensible. We've made it livable. We leave. We start from nothing. The argument went back and forth. Fight or flee. Risk everyone or abandon everything. There were no good options. Finally, Lennox spoke up. Their voice was quiet, but it cut through the argument. What about the bus? Everyone turned to look at them. Gray's bus is armored. It's mobile. It can carry people and supplies. What if we use it as both? Like, we could fortify here, but have the bus ready to evacuate if things go bad. A backup plan. Dalton considered this. The bus holds how many people? 40 if it's packed, I said. But with supplies and gear, maybe 25 comfortably. We're 15 now. Could fit everyone in essential supplies. The bus is also loud, I added. It could be a distraction. If the raiders attack, I could draw them away while everyone else evacuates on foot or in other vehicles. You'd be putting yourself at risk, Petra said. I've been at risk since I drove out of that storage lot. At least this way it's for something useful. Dalton looked around the room. All right. Here's what we do. We fortify. We prepare for a fight. But we also prepare to evacuate if needed. Gray's bus is our insurance policy. We load it with supplies, keep it ready to move at a moment's notice. If the raiders come back and it looks like we can hold them, we fight. If it looks like we can't, we leave. Everyone in favor? Hands went up. All 15 of them. Motion carries. Let's get to work. We spent the next 3 days preparing, reinforcing the fence, adding more barbed wire, building additional firing positions in the guard towers, stockpiling ammunition, practicing drills for evacuation. I worked on the bus constantly, made sure it was always fueled, always maintained, always ready to move. I created a loading system, Everything essential was packed in crates that could be carried quickly. Food, water, medicine, weapons. First aid. Everything we'd need if we had to run. Lennox helped me create an inventory list. We knew exactly what was on the bus, exactly where everything was. No wasted time searching if we had to evacuate quickly. Vanya helped too. She was the one who suggested we practice loading the bus. So we did. We ran drills. Everyone practiced getting from the farmhouse to the bus, loading their assigned crate, getting inside. We timed it. First attempt, 4 minutes. After practice, 90 seconds. We got good at it, really good. On the 4th day, the raiders came back. It was early morning. The sun had just come up. I was on watch in the guard tower with Tamsin. We saw dust on the road, lots of it. Vehicles, Tamsin said. She reached for the alarm, a triangle of metal that rang loud enough to wake everyone. But I stopped her. Wait, let me see first. I grabbed the binoculars, looked down the road. It wasn't just 3 trucks this time. It was 7, maybe 8. Some trucks, some SUVs. One thing that looked like it might have been a school bus at some point. And people, at least 40 of them, maybe more. Ring it, I said. Ring it now. Tamsin hit the alarm. The triangle rang out across the compound, harsh and urgent. Within seconds, people were pouring out of the buildings. Everyone knew the drill. Everyone knew what to do. Dalton ran to the guard tower, climbed up, took the binoculars from me, looked at the approaching convoy. Shit, he breathed. The vehicles stopped in the same spot as before. Men and women, there were women with them this time, climbed out. They were better armed than last time. I saw hunting rifles, shotguns, a few handguns. And they were organized. They moved in formation, spreading out, creating a line facing the compound. Kravitz walked forward again. Same confident stride. Same friendly smile that wasn't friendly at all. Morning, he called out. Nice day, isn't it? Dalton didn't respond. I'll take that as agreement. Listen, I've been thinking about our last conversation, about protection and trading and all that. And I realized I didn't make my position clear. See, this territory, about 50 miles in any direction, that's ours now. We control it. Anyone living here, they pay tribute. Food, supplies, whatever. In exchange, we make sure the infected don't bother you. Make sure other raiders don't bother you. It's a fair deal. We don't want your deal, Dalton called back. I'm afraid you don't have a choice. This is how things work now. You're either with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, well... Kravitz gestured to the 40 armed people behind him. That doesn't work out so well. Below me, I saw Osric moving into position with his rifle. Saw Petra at the fence with a shotgun. Saw Tamsin with her bow. Saw Zale holding a pistol like he'd never held one before, but was determined to try. We were 15 defenders against 40 attackers. If this became a fight, we'd lose. Dalton knew it too. I could see it in his face, see him calculating, see him making the impossible choice. How much tribute? He asked. Half your food stores, your ammunition, access to your medical supplies, and that bus. Kravitz pointed at the bus, at my bus. That's a valuable asset. We'll take good care of it. No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You're not taking the bus. Kravitz looked up at me. That wasn't a request. I don't care. You're not taking it. It's mine. Gray, Dalton said quietly, we need to think about everyone. I am thinking about everyone. We give them the bus, we lose our mobility, we lose our escape route. We give them half our supplies, we starve in a month. We give them our ammunition, We can't defend ourselves. This isn't tribute. It's surrender. Smart man, Kravitz called out. He understands. This is surrender, but it's survival too. You get to keep living. Keep your little compound here. All you gotta do is pay the price. I looked at Dalton, at Osric, at Petra, at everyone gathered below. At Lennox and Vanya, both hiding near the barn with terrified expressions. No, I said again. We don't surrender. Kravitz's smile faded. Then you die, all of you. We'll take what we want from your bodies. You can try. For a moment, nobody moved. Both sides armed, both sides ready. The morning sun beat down on us. The infected moaned in the distance, always in the distance, completely unaware of the human drama playing out. Then Kravitz raised his hand. His people raised their weapons. Last chance, he called out. Dalton looked at me. I saw the question in his eyes. I nodded. He turned back to Kravitz. All right, we'll give you what you want. But we need time to gather everything. An hour. You've got 30 minutes, and nobody leaves the compound. Try to run, we shoot. Understood. Kravitz lowered his hand. His people lowered their weapons. They stood there, waiting, 40 strong, blocking the only way out. Dalton climbed down from the guard tower. I followed him. As soon as we were out of sight, he gathered everyone. We're evacuating, he said quietly. Right now. While they're waiting for us to load supplies for them, we're loading the bus. Everyone gets their assigned crate. Everyone gets on board. Gray, you get that engine running and ready to move. They're blocking the road, Osric pointed out. I know. That's why Gray's going to ram through them. Everyone looked at me. I nodded. Bus can do it. That ram's built to take impacts. We hit them fast enough, we'll scatter their vehicles. Punch through before they can react. They'll shoot at us, Rhiannon said. They'll shoot at the bus while we're running. The bus is armored. Plywood might not stop bullets, but it'll slow them down. And we'll be moving fast. Hard target to hit. I looked at everyone. I can't promise this will work, but it's our best shot. Our only shot, Petra added. All right. Dalton clapped his hands once. Let's move. Quietly. Everyone knows their job. Get it done. We scattered. I ran to the bus, climbed inside, started the engine. The diesel roared to life. I let it warm up while everyone else loaded their crates. Lennox and Vanya brought food. Petra brought batteries and tools. Osric brought weapons and ammunition. Marin and Zale brought medical supplies. Everyone worked fast. Nobody spoke. Just the sounds of crates being loaded, people climbing aboard, equipment being secured. 90 seconds, just like we'd practiced. Dalton was the last one on. He climbed into the passenger seat next to me, rifle in hand. Everyone on board? Voices from the back. Yes, we're here. We're ready. All right, Gray. Show us what this bus can do. I put the bus in gear, released the air brake, aimed at the gate. What are you doing? Kravitz shouted. He'd seen the bus move. Where do you think you're going? I didn't answer. Just pressed the accelerator. The bus surged forward, picked up speed, 20 miles per hour, 30. The gate was light wood, decorative more than functional. The ram hit it and it exploded into splinters. We were out, on the access road, the raider vehicles directly ahead. Kravitz was screaming orders. His people were running to their vehicles. Some of them were raising weapons. I saw muzzle flashes, heard bullets impact the bus. The plywood held. The glass cracked, but didn't shatter. 40 miles per hour now. The ram aimed at the gap between two pickup trucks. The gap wasn't quite wide enough. Hold on, I shouted. The ram hit the side of one truck. The impact was massive. I felt it through the entire frame. The bus shoved the truck aside like a toy. Metal screamed. The truck flipped onto its side. We kept going. Another vehicle in the way, an SUV. I hit it head on. The ram crushed the front end. The SUV spun away. We kept going. Bullets everywhere now. The rear windows shattered. Someone in the back screamed. But we were through. Past the radar line. On the main road. I pushed the accelerator to the floor. The diesel roared. 50 miles per hour. 55. The bus wasn't built for speed, but it was moving. Behind us, the raiders were scrambling, trying to get to their remaining vehicles, trying to give chase. But we had a head start. We had momentum. We had a chance. "Is everyone okay?" Dalton called to the back. Voices responded. Some shaken. Rhiannon was crying. One of the twins, I still couldn't tell them apart, had been grazed by a bullet, but it was superficial. But we were all alive. "Where are we going?" Petra asked. Good question. I'd been so focused on escaping, I hadn't thought about destination. We were on a rural highway, heading north, away from the compound, away from the raiders. But toward what? I don't know, I admitted. But we keep moving until we figure it out. Dalton pulled out a road map, the old-fashioned paper kind, started studying it. There's a state park about 30 miles from here. Campgrounds, remote, good tree cover. We could hide there, regroup. State park it is. I drove. The raiders followed for maybe 10 miles, their remaining vehicles visible in the mirrors. But the bus, despite being slower, was built for endurance. The raiders' trucks were modified for speed, but burning fuel fast. Eventually, they fell back, gave up the chase. We'd escaped. The state park was exactly what we needed. Isolated, heavily wooded. The campground facilities were abandoned, but intact. There was even a stream for water. We pulled the bus into a campsite designed for RVs, shut down the engine, and just sat there for a moment. 15 people in a bus. All our worldly possessions in crates. No home, no compound, no defenses. But alive. We set up camp that first day. Used the bus as headquarters. Created a perimeter using whatever we could find. Fallen logs, the few tools we'd managed to bring. Posted watches, treated the injured, and tried to figure out what came next. That night, sitting around a small fire, we risked it because we needed the warmth and the light. Dalton spoke. We lost the compound, lost 3 weeks of work, but we're alive. That's because of Gray and the bus. We owe them. We don't owe anything, I said. We're all in this together. Still, you built something that saved us. You drove through a line of armed raiders like it was nothing. You gave us a chance. What happens now? Lennox asked. They were sitting close to me, wrapped in a blanket. Do we stay here? For a while, Dalton said. We need to rest, recover, figure out our next move. But long term, we can't stay. This park is isolated, but it's not defensible. Raiders could find us again. Infected could wander in. We need somewhere better. Like what? I don't know yet, but we'll find it. Over the next week, we worked on establishing ourselves at the park. Built better shelters using materials from the campground facilities. Created a more secure perimeter. Started exploring the surrounding area for supplies. The bus became even more critical. It was our mobile base, our supply runner, our protection. I made runs to nearby towns, small places the raiders probably hadn't found yet, and brought back food, tools, clothing, anything we could use. Lennox came with me on these runs. They wanted to learn, wanted to be useful. I taught them how to drive the bus. Not well, not yet, but enough that they could move it if they had to. Vanya learned too. She was too small to reach the pedals properly, but she sat in my lap and steered while I handled the gas and brake. She was a natural, better spatial awareness than some adults I'd known. We were adapting, surviving, creating a new normal in this impossible situation. On day 6 at the park, Tamsin came back from a hunting trip with news. She'd found another group of survivors, about 20 of them. They were holed up in an old resort hotel about 15 miles from the park. They'd seen the bus on one of my supply runs and sent Tamsin to investigate. "They want to meet," she reported. "They're interested in forming an alliance, sharing resources, mutual defense." "Could be a trap," Osric said. "Could be," Tamsin agreed. "But they showed me their setup. It's impressive. They've got power, gardens, a real operation going." Dalton looked at me. "What do you think?" "I think we need allies. Can't do this alone forever. But we approach carefully. Take the bus. Be ready to leave if anything feels wrong." Agreed. The next day, Dalton, Osric, Tamsin, and I drove to the resort hotel. It was a massive building, probably had been upscale before the collapse. Now it was fortified. All the ground floor windows were blocked, defensive positions on the balconies, a fence around the parking lot, and people, real people. They came out to greet us when we pulled up. They looked healthy, organized, hopeful. Their leader was a woman named Ilara. She was maybe 40, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing cargo pants and a tactical vest. She approached the bus with confidence, but not aggression. "You must be from the park group," she called out. "Tamsin told us about you, about the bus especially. That's some impressive engineering." I opened the bus door, stepped out. "Thanks. Built it myself. I can tell. Quality work." She extended her hand. I shook it. "I'm Ilara. I was a city planner before everything went to hell. Now I plan survival strategies instead of traffic patterns." I liked her immediately. She showed us around the resort. They'd converted it into a real settlement, 22 people living there. They had solar power from panels they'd salvaged, gardens in the courtyard growing vegetables, a system for collecting and filtering rainwater, defensive positions that could be manned quickly. "We've been here 5 weeks, Ilara explained. "We're stable, but we're isolated. We need connections, other groups, trading partners, people we can call for help if things go bad." "Same," Dalton said. "We had a compound. Lost it to raiders a week ago. Been at the park since, but it's not sustainable long term." I heard about those raiders. Kravitz's crew. They've been a problem all over this region, taking what they want from anyone who can't fight back hard enough. "You've had trouble with them?" "They haven't come here yet, but they will. It's only a matter of time." Ilara looked at the bus. "That's why I'm interested in your vehicle. It's mobile, it's armored, it's useful, and it represents something important." "What's that?" "Options, flexibility. Most of us are trapped wherever we establish ourselves. One location, can't move without giving up everything. But you can relocate, can evacuate, can help others evacuate. That's valuable." She was right. The bus wasn't just transportation. It was freedom in a world where freedom had become the rarest commodity. "What are you proposing?" I asked. "An alliance. Our 2 groups work together, share resources, share information, help defend each other if raiders attack. And your bus becomes an asset for both groups. You make supply runs, help with evacuations if needed, serve as a mobile response unit. What do we get in return?" "Access to our resources. Food from our gardens, power from our solar array, medical treatment from the doctor we have here, a place to stay if the park becomes unsafe. Lara paused. And friends. In this world, that might be the most valuable thing of all. Dalton looked at me. What do you think? I thought about the 15 people back at the park, about Lennox and Vanya, about surviving alone versus surviving together. I think we'd be stupid not to accept. That was 3 months ago. Now, I'm sitting in the driver's seat of the bus, writing this all down because Lennox told me I should, that someone needs to document what's happening, what we've lost, what we've built. The bus has been across half the state now. I've made runs to dozens of towns, rescued dozens more survivors. The alliance between our park group and Alara's resort group has grown. We're 37 people now, strong enough to defend ourselves, smart enough to avoid fights we can't win. Kravitz's raiders are still out there. We've had 2 more encounters with them. Both times we escaped. Both times the bus came through. The infected are still everywhere. They'll always be everywhere. But we've learned to live with that. Learn to move through their world carefully. Learn to survive. The bus needs maintenance constantly. The ram has been rebuilt twice. The engine's starting to show wear. The solar panels need replacing, but it keeps running. It keeps protecting us. It keeps being home. Because that's what it is now. Not just a vehicle, not just an armored motorhome. It's home. It's hope. It's proof that one person with some plywood and determination and YouTube welding tutorials can build something that matters. Lennox is 16 now. They can drive the bus better than I can. They've talked about modifying it further, adding more armor, better power systems, making it even more capable. Vanya is 12. She's already planning what kind of vehicle she wants to build when she's older. Something smaller, more maneuverable. She's got notebooks full of designs. We're teaching the next generation, not just to survive, but to build, to create, to imagine a future beyond just making it through another day. The world ended. Everything changed. But we're still here. We're still fighting. We're still building. And we've got a bus that can go anywhere. That's more than most people have. That's enough. I close the notebook, put it in the storage compartment I've designated for important documents, start the engine. The diesel rumbles to life, familiar and reassuring. Lennox climbs into the passenger seat. Where to today? Ilara radioed. There's a settlement about 40 miles west that needs help. Medical emergency. They need our doctor and supplies. The road's bad that direction. When is the road ever good? Lennox grins. Fair point. I release the air brake, put the bus in gear, pull out onto the road. The sun's rising behind us, casting long shadows ahead. The infected dot the landscape, wandering as they always do. But we drive past them. They can't catch us, can't stop us. 40 feet of rolling sanctuary, 12,000 pounds of determination, 400 horses ready to carry us wherever we need to go. It's not the journey I planned when I bought this bus 3 weeks before the end of the world. It's better, because I'm not alone anymore. Because we're not just surviving, we're living. Because every mile we drive is proof that humanity can adapt, can overcome, can build something beautiful even in the ruins. The bus rumbles down the road, toward the settlement that needs help, toward whatever challenges wait there, toward tomorrow. And I'm ready for it. We all are.